Yeah, my slides visible? Okay, great. So friends, when we say daily and monthly monitoring and verification of savings, right, and all other parameters, so what does it mean? It actually, it's like a mark sheet or dashboard of your efforts, investment and decisions, right? So that is the role M&V plays in any energy efficiency project. I repeat, it's a mark sheet, right? You may call it as a mark sheet or you may call it as a dashboard of your efforts, investment and decisions, right? Because purpose of energy saving project is none other than but to deliver energy savings, right? And it must deliver that. And how do we know whether we are getting the savings or not? That is by M&V step, right? And also how to identify the parameters which are responsible for reduced savings, and by doing what all things we can maximize the savings. All that also covers in M&V session. So let's see. Friends, we'll have a recap of all the earlier sessions very quickly, right? So first session was on defining baseline and ideation. Ideation means identification of energy saving projects. Then the next was finalizing energy saving projects. Friends, remember these energy saving projects are as many as medicines in a medical shop, right? But like a good doctor finally does a good diagnosis and then gives us some 5-6 medicines, and then finally we are cured. So similar is the approach for identifying and implementing energy saving project. We have to finally do something like 6 to 8 project or maximum 10 project, depending on size of a factory or size of a commercial building, right? Because it doesn't matter whether you are implementing this technology or that technology, or you are executing this energy saving project or that energy saving project. Finally, you have to get to the targeted savings. Your targeted savings through energy efficiency can be 5%, 10%, or 15%, or even 30%, right? Up to 30% it is seen that we can get savings through energy efficiency project. Then, like any other project, procurement is also very important in energy efficiency projects. So we discussed that. And after doing everything, then we have to implement the project, right? So last session was on implementation. That was before Diwali. And now after Diwali, we are going to discuss a daily and monthly monitoring and verification. And also how does it actually affect the overall outcome of energy saving project, right? And then there will be 7th session on operation and maintenance. Like any other project or any other machinery or any other equipment, your operation and maintenance is very important. So that is what we will see it on 16th November. And then summary and key takeaways from all the earlier 7 sessions that we will cover it in on 23rd of November. So moving next, and it's very important to learn all these things, right? We have learned very hard way through our last 10 years of experience, and we thought that it is always better to share that to the ecosystem. So that's how we are sharing it. So let's see the learning from the first session, which was baselining. See, energy saving is a difference of 2 numbers. How much was the energy consumption earlier, or how much was the energy cost earlier, and how much is the energy consumption later on, or how much is the energy cost later on, right? So difference of these 2 numbers is actually saving, right? Saving is not absolute parameter, right? So baselining means what is your current level of consumption. That is called as baselining, right? Now, in case of commercial building, it has to be linked with occupancy. In case of production, it has to be linked with production. Because after your project is implemented, then your production can go up, right? And then if you are comparing it without accounting for the increased production, then you may find that your savings are reduced, or the production might have gone down, right? And that will reflect into higher savings, right? Which is difficult to accept, because the actual reduction in energy consumption is because of the production reduction. So that is what has to be accounted for. So there are methods for doing all this, right? And then it is very important to get the stakeholders agreement on it, right? However, despite all these complexities, we always recommend that keep it simple. Transparency from client side, ESCO side, and OEM always helps, right? And that is why right baselining is very important. And the moment you get to a specific energy consumption level, you automatically reach to certain kind of diagnosis also, right? And certain kind of a project identification also, right? If you have experience in that particular domain, right? So this understanding of the specific energy consumption level, its variation over days or over production levels, gives you a phenomenal understanding. It can be at a plant level, or it can be at a process level, or it can be at a equipment level, right? And remember, energy saving is a long-term phenomena, right? Because once you have implemented the project and demonstrated the savings, but it has to recur month on month. It has to recur with the complete operation of the project. So this is the case wherein the green line indicates the before energy cost and blue line indicates the after energy cost. This is actual implemented project by us, and it is very much possible to demonstrate energy savings like this. So what is the learning out of it? Expectation from any energy efficiency project is always the difference between two numbers. The first one is the baseline, and second one is outcome of your ideation, right? So let's see the ideation. Ideation means identification of energy saving project, right? If there is a story or if there is a background that such a such energy saving project has been implemented at such a such place, automatically one feels like that, let's implement that. But what we have seen is that it is always better, because every plant, every building is different, right? The project which has been identified in some other building may not suit to this building, or what has been implemented in some another plant may not suit to this plant, despite the processes being similar. So it is always better to do the project ideation at a fundamental level, right? And therefore, we have to begin with the baseline. Now the baseline has been identified, right? And if this is the level of specific energy consumption at a plant level, or at a process level, or at a section level, so from there we have to begin, right? And we have to begin with the diagnosis, right? Why is that the specific energy consumption level is of that kind, right? Because finally, any energy saving project is money saved versus money invested, right? So we have to arrive at certain projects which are actually giving you the best ROI, right? And that is why a preconceived mind we do not prefer, and we do not recommend as well, right? It is always important to verify the baseline, right? Because the energy consumption that has happened in the past, right, need to be checked and cross-verified. It is important to do that. But at the same time, it has to be believed also, right? And mistakes can happen despite doing all these processes followed, right? And then the ideation can be so many. That doesn't mean that we need to implement all of them energy saving project. We have to find out the most suited one, the most ROI kind of one, and then if the targeted savings is 15% for that, the whole energy initiative is being done. Then the purpose is to achieve that 15%, not that this project or that project, not that this technology or that technology, right? So finally, there will be so many projects, and we will have to finalize a few projects, right? And purpose of those few projects is to deliver us the outcome, right? Whatever targeted savings we have planned for. And this should be the fastest way to reach to those savings level. This should be the most ROI, resulting ROI kind of method to reach to those level of savings. And it's possible to do all this, because end of the day, it is the overall cost of the energy that we are targeting that has to be saved. Or if we are targeting a net zero building or net zero plant, even if we are trying to get a lot of renewable energy, right, but it is not sufficient. Energy consumption is still through fossil fuels, right? And then that can certainly be reduced by applying various energy efficiency technology. And that is the way we can also become a net zero facility. So again, I'll give example of the doctors that finally we have to arrive at a few set of projects, and those few set of projects are based on the diagnosis that has been carried out, and then we have to reach out to that targeted level of savings. So now what happens is, as we see future of energy efficiency projects and financing is that ESCOs will identify the project. However, they will deliver guaranteed savings, right? Because ESCO's investment capabilities are limited, right? The number of ESCOs are very limited. If we see the size of country and size of plant and operations, they are so high that it is impossible for the ESCOs to fund it, right? And finally, it is the plant or facilities energy costs, so they will have to take some initiative from their side as well, right? Then ESCOs will have competence to bring in finance, right, for the energy end users. That's possible, right? And finance would be taken by the energy end users, and ESCOs would be delivering the guaranteed savings. So that's the fastest way we see that the implementation of energy saving projects can be taken up, right? And savings would be monitored, and a positive cash flow finally for the customer, right, would be obtained. So that's how we see a future of energy efficiency project and financing, right? And that's how it is not necessary to have a pre-defined budget for doing all this. Now coming to the procurement, right? Now obviously this procurement is much more than a simple purchase functioning of a purchase department. This procurement is much more than that, right? What we have seen is that a single entity taking the responsibility of everything and delivering the result, that works much better than going through the conventional purchase procedures or procurement policies of the facilities. Next is the implementation. I'll repeat these steps again, right? Basically, we need to ensure transparent method of creating baseline, which has to be acceptable to all the stakeholders. Then various energy efficiency ideas. Then we have to finalize the project. Then we have to ensure that where from the finance would be coming in, and the procurement, then the implementation, then monitoring the savings, and then corrective actions. And how do you handle the failures, right? All those aspects need to be planned very properly, right? And that is where the ESCOs stand for, and they deliver all of these things, right? So if we see the overall process of energy efficiency project implementation, so it primarily requires both competencies. One is the energy efficiency, which is absolutely necessary, but then project implementation and project management expertise, that is also equally required. If we are falling short in any one of them, it will not deliver the results, right? So this is the method which we follow and we implement, and we successfully achieve the targeted saving. So I would like to share that also with you all. The first one is that make your overall target, right? Are we interested to save 5% or 10% or 30%, right? Because your approach to do that completely changes. So this is the target which has to be done first, right? So for commercial building and industrial utilities, we usually target 15 to 20%, right? Then we suggest that you identify your partner, right? Whomsoever you want to implement the energy saving project, right? Then identify energy saving project with investment and ROI. And obviously these investments and ROI, right, somebody has to be responsible for that. So we call it as who will bell the cat, right? So the one who is belling the cat, right, is the one who is going to do the procurement, is the one who is going to do everything to deliver the savings, and is the one who is going to be responsible for the savings as well. Then and only then things happen properly, right? Then the step 6 is monitor your progress, monitor your savings, monitor various parameters, right? So this 6th step is what we are going to discuss in detail today, right? And then we have to keep communicating the progress, right, to all the stakeholders, right? So let's come to the today's session, right? So I again indicate that we may prepare very hard for the exams, right? And then understand the subject throughout the year, but it is finally that mark sheet, right, or the dashboard, right, which indicates our outcome of whatever we have done, right? So monitoring and verification is actually the mark sheet or dashboard of your efforts, investment, and decisions. So let's see this, right? Just 1 minute. Yeah. So today we are going to see actually what's the difference, right? It is basically the savings which are going to come from an energy efficiency project that is going to decide whether our energy saving project is good or bad, right? It is not just the installation of energy efficiency equipment. We will see that with a practical example, right? Then we will see the impact of baseline and savings projection, because baseline and saving projections are something which have been done at a very early stage, right? At the first stage or at the second stage, right? And today we are at 6th stage, right? And usually a long time, or in many of the cases 1 to 3 months of time has passed, right? when you had fixed the baseline, right? And how you are going to measure the savings, right? So all these issues are very, very important, right? And they are actually going to decide whether your project is going to be successful or not. Even if your installation is success, even if your energy efficiency project is finally performing well, right? But its actual success is based on how much energy or how much of energy cost or how much of GHG reduction it has actually done, and where does it fit in as compared to the projection. And that is why we say very clearly that outcome is outcome, right? Are we exceeding our projections, whatever we have done earlier, or not? That is the key, right? Then let's come to the M&V, right? So M&V is basically monitoring and verification, right? It comes from IPMVP. What is IPMVP? IPMVP is an international performance measurement and verification protocol. This is used worldwide to measure and quantify the savings, right? These professionals are also called as CMVP, like we have energy auditors and certified energy managers. So like that, these professionals are called as CMVP, right? And finally, there are four M&V options it suggests: A, B, C, and D. We will see them in detail, right? So M stands for monitoring. We will see what all to monitor and also how to monitor. And then V stands for verification. So what all to verify and also how to verify, right? So let's see. So I'm sharing here three examples, right? The first one is a LED project, right? It is for sake of understanding the concept, or sake of understanding what I'm trying to say here, right? So what we are trying to see, physical look of an energy efficiency project or its features versus identifiable savings, right? So these two aspects we are trying to compare, right? So it's a clearly visible energy saving project. There is no debate, there is no doubt, right? That by doing LED project, we are going to get savings, right? Then the second case is a well-accepted best practices for energy saving project. There are several guidelines, right? Prepared by so many organizations, be it TERI, be it CII, be it UNIDO, right? And they have come up with very plant-specific or process-specific guidelines, and you are implementing those projects, right? Or the third one is a very well calculated energy audit report and technically demonstrable savings, right? And very good and well accepted technologies. So all these three things can be done, right? And we may do energy saving projects through any one of these three methods. But see, friends, what happens, right? I have a very small video to showcase that, right? And that's what actually the management looks for. Let's see that.
So, may I present?
Let me show you with the proper size.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, may I present to you the super luxury yacht, the Nefertiti. Apart from all the luxuries, it has 6 luxury suites, 3 kitchens, a mini golf course, a 3D theater, 2 ballrooms, and to top it all, it has a top speed of 25 knots. Kitna deti hai?
A country obsessed with mileage, Maruti Suzuki makes India's most fuel-efficient cars.
So friends, this is what exactly happens in any energy saving project, right? And that is what any management looks after, right? Because the purpose of any energy saving project is to actually get the savings, right? So what savings are coming out, right, is actually decides whether a saving project or energy saving project is actually going to be categorized as a good project or as a bad project, and not the installation of energy efficiency equipment, because they may look very good, your reports may look very good, your performance in terms of lighting or in terms of air conditioning or in terms of hot water may look very good, but the whole purpose of the investment, right, the whole effort were made to deliver the savings, right? And how savings are actually calculated, that is through the step of verification, monitoring and verification. So that is the importance of monitoring and verification in any energy efficiency project. So let's see that further.
Sir, may I present you?
Yeah. Now let us again conceptually understand, right? So whenever we talk of energy, so energy, when we say power as a function of time, so that becomes energy, right? So power is the instantaneous difference, right? That is kilowatt minus kilowatt, right? Whereas energy is this saved kilowatt over a period of time, right? And that is the importance of time in any energy saving project, right? Now, let's take the second one, right? The in between picture, right? It is basically demonstrating the green line, right? The upper green line, right? Which is a curved one, is the actual energy cost, right? Because there was fuel cost, there was electricity cost. So to compute them in a rupees manner, right? That was important, right? So that is why this is the cost. But here you can see that in summer the air conditioning is going up. It's a commercial building actually, right? And in winter it is coming down, right? But for example, for quantifying savings, if you decide that the average energy consumption, right, that which is the horizontal line, right, if you take that, right, and then actually this brown line and this blue lines are actually energy cost after first year and second year, right? So you can see a very good and very consistent savings with respect to a curved baseline. But now I'm just hypothetically saying that we have taken the average baseline, right? Now, average baseline, suppose for example, if you are implementing it in second month, you will not get any savings at all, right? I'm saying with respect to the brown line, right? And in case of winter, you will get huge savings, right? So that is the reason for every 12 month, in case of a commercial building, right? It is important to have 12-month baseline because your summer consumptions, your winter consumptions are completely different, right? So that is how M&V has to be very properly thought, like what kind of baseline you are going to have, right? And the third point, right, which I want to make here is that incorrect savings, right? Finally, whatever savings are happening, they are happening, right? But if your projection is more, and if you are not able to demonstrate that much of savings by actual measurement and verification, right, the satisfaction will not be there, right? Because the purpose of investment, right, is the ROI, right? So that is why M&V is very, very important, right? So the baseline was decided in the beginning, right? Saving projections were also made in the beginning, right? The money was invested in the project, right? And now is the time to actually see that how much of the savings are coming or not, right? So that is how a wrong baseline or a wrong monitoring and verification approach followed for any energy saving project will actually become a reason for success or failure of your energy efficiency project. You might not have done anything wrong with your energy efficiency project. You have done it perfectly right, right? And your energy efficiency project is perfectly functioning. But how the performance of energy efficiency project is finally going to get measured is by comparing the energy consumption before and after. So this comparison of energy consumption before and after, right, is being done through your monitoring and verification approach, which you have decided for your saving calculation. So that's the importance of M&V. Let me take another example. And for simplicity, I have taken a very simple example of lighting energy efficiency project, right? So initial lighting load was 100 kilowatt, right? I'm talking about the case one, right? It is the production plant in which the lighting energy efficiency project is done, right? And after energy efficiency lighting, the lighting involved was LED or induction lighting, right? The overall load reduced down to 30 kilowatt. So obviously you have saved 70 kilowatt. However, the operating hours were different, right? For different lights, they were different, right? And these number of lighting fixtures go into thousands, right? So operating hours were varying from 8 hours to 24 hours, right? And estimated energy savings were 3,15,000 units per year, right? Whereas the overall energy consumption of the plant, because it's a production plant, right? Lighting energy consumption is always very little in any production plant. So the overall energy consumption was 75 lakh unit, right? So in 75 lakh unit, you are actually saving 3.15 lakh unit, and that too on a annual level, right? And the production was affected by seasonal. The product was like that. So monthly minimum energy consumption was 3 lakh and monthly maximum energy consumption was 8 lakh. So their energy consumption was already varying, right? So in such a varying energy consumption, if you try to find out 3.15 lakh, which is for 1 year, so you divide it by 12, right? So you'll get units in 1,000 to be saved. So unit in 1,000 to be saved, and that you are trying to identify in a monthly electricity consumption of 3 to 8 lakh, it's difficult to find out. So what happened? Though the project was done properly and it is 100% and it is obvious that there are savings, right? Because your load is reduced, right? Earlier it was 100 kilowatt and now it is 30 kilowatt, right? But savings are something which has to be demonstrated, right? So you have to demonstrate. How you will demonstrate? Not by doing your act, but by energy numbers, right? But by your M&V plan, right? So there is a huge dissatisfaction, right? Nobody is able to demonstrate, right, which management can convince that there are savings, right? And when there are no savings, right, the overall enthusiasm for energy efficiency project is not there, right? Because usually the finance department, right, looks for numbers and which should always be verifiable numbers, right? Now, for sake of easier understanding, right, I have put the numbers same, right? But in this case, what additionally has been done is lighting feeder was separated, right? In case 2 is the same project, absolutely same number, but lighting feeder was separated, right? Energy meters were installed, right? And since it was lighting, there is no effect of season as such. Most of the lights are indoor lights, right? And using the meters, first the baseline was created, right? Like these are total 12 feeders, right? Overall lighting load was put to 12 different meters, and then the baseline was created that this is how the consumption is, and then that baseline was also cross-checked by multiplying with the wattage and operating hours, right? So like that, a cross-check was done. So this is a huge task. It's not an easy task, right? However, after the project, right, obviously there is a reduction in those meters, right? Because those meters are having only these loads, right? And it's not easy to segregate meters, right? It can be it can be involving other loads, other single phase load, but other single phase load may be same pre and post lighting project, right? That kind of assumption many times suits, right? So this is how the savings were verifiable. And the moment savings are verifiable on the meters, now nobody can say that there are no savings, right? Because on the main meter, you cannot demonstrate because of the season, the variation in the overall energy consumption is very, very high, right? But a very proper and good monitoring and verification approach actually saved the project. So this is the importance of monitoring and verification. The projects are exactly seen, right? So that is the reason project is always next and M&V is always first. Okay, right. Now let's see the third case. The third case is a case of a warehouse facility. Now for ease of understanding, I have kept the numbers same, right? Now obviously if it is a warehouse, right, it can have a same lighting load, right? And it can also have same kind of energy efficient lighting load, this is 30 kilowatts. So difference is 70 kilowatt here also. Operating hours can also be similar, right? But in a warehouse, the variation in the energy consumption will not be so much, right? So here the variation was 5.75 to 6.75. I have just equated the numbers with the proportion, and I have kept the basic numbers same so that we can actually understand the things conceptually. Now what happens was, here also there was no proper M&V was planned, right? But because the energy consumption was in lighting, energy consumption was in ventilation, right? There was very little air conditioning load, right? And the seasonal impact was also very, very low. So the overall impact would be seen in the bill amount straight, right? So in case of a warehouse facility, despite there was no proper M&V, right? The study load actually of the facility actually saved the energy efficiency project, right? Because there's nothing as good as demonstration of energy saving in the actual electricity bills, right? in our energy performance contracts, right, we have done and demonstrated these savings on the main meter, right, on the utility bill, right, and that's how the conviction on the energy saving project is very, very important, right. So friends, these three examples clearly tells us the importance of a good M&B, right, and it's always better to exceed the projections, right. It's always better to have a bit conservative estimate, right, so that the actual savings are always more than that, not the other way around, right, because savings will be savings only, right. They will not be more or less, right. But what kind of expectations you have set from the project, right, let there be conservative on that. So now how do we do M&B, right? So as per IPMVP, right, these are the international guidelines followed by every country, right? There are 4 options: option A, option B, option C, and option D, right? Earlier also we had discussed this in session 1 and session 2. Let me repeat it again, right? So option 1 is actually retrofit isolation, right? You are doing key parameter measurement. Like for example, if you are doing a lighting project, you can do it this way. You are doing an energy efficient motor project, so we are concerning only that motor, right? Or you are converting a hydraulic motor to a servo motor, then we are talking about only that motor, right? So how much was kilowatt before and how much was kilowatt after, you can measure that, right? And rest all parameters you can have estimate, right? Like for example, it's operating hours, right? So difference in kW1 minus kW2 multiplied by operating hours is your actual savings, and multiplied by unit rate is your rupees saved, right? The second part is retrofit isolation, in which all parameters are measured, right? That's how they suggested. Like for example, in case of HVAC, right? In HVAC, you need to measure all the parameters, right? And then the third one comes whole facility, because finally the interest is to reduce the utility bill. That's the purpose of energy saving project, right? So here it is done at the factory or at the facility level, right? And then the D is calibrated simulation. This is done for a greenfield project, right? If you're trying to do a normal project, or if you're trying to do a green building, right, then through calibrated simulation, you are actually trying to implement various energy saving options. And then through simulation itself, you are trying to quantify the savings. So that is called as calibrated simulation, right? So we need to be very, very careful to choose our option. There is nothing like this option is good or that option is good. It all depends on how and which project we are all working for, right? So friends, now let's get more deeper into it, right? So in M&B, M stands for monitoring, right? The moment we say monitoring, then what all to monitor? So I'm sharing what all parameters we have monitored or how we have gone about it, right? So it was basically a chiller energy saving project, right? So the moment we say chiller energy saving project, it's not that just the chiller is replaced by another chiller. The chiller was quite all right. So it was the same chiller, but we installed auto tube cleaning system on that, right? In the building, LED project was done, so that automatically means a reduction in heat load, right? So your LED project also gives you savings in terms of chillers. Then for hot water purpose, there was heat pump installed, right? And which was providing additional chilling. So that much of load on chiller is reduced. So that is actually reducing your consumption on the load, on the chiller, right? And then what also happens is the chiller performance improves at part load. So that factor was also coming into the picture, right? And then there was a advanced IoT based chiller controller. We installed that, right? We also controlled chill water flow and condenser water flow, right? And we also improved cooling tower performance, right? Friends, it's not important to individually see how much of savings are happening from all of them. What is important is you are finally executing a chiller energy efficiency project, right? Wherein we are estimating that there will be a saving of 20% or 30%, right? So that is what we are targeting for. So means doesn't matter, right? What matters is what is that which we are aiming, and are we achieving that or not, right? Now, what all parameters we were monitoring? Since these projects are at different locations, right, across the country, right, we preferred WhatsApp, right? Though we had a lot of parameters coming in the chiller controller, right? But definitely chiller controller cannot give me all the parameters. Like for example, what is the occupancy level, right? What is the banquet level, right? So there are so many things automation is not possible, right? Or any energy monitoring system cannot give. right? So we monitored everything, and these kind of things we can see in the log sheet. In log sheets, we see this kind of detailing. So we did everything, and we had also manned all the sites because the investments involved were quite huge, right? Now let's see further, right? So there was boiler involved, right? So various boiler parameters, right? Then how much was the PNG consumption? So we monitored it up to daily level, right? That how much is the PNG consumption, right? Then then there was a laundry project, right? So in laundry project also we monitored so many parameters, right? And then this is all shift wise monitoring. This is all daily monitoring, right? So in this case we are trying to demonstrate how much is the daily savings. So we calculated daily savings, right? And we used WhatsApp because in WhatsApp we could create format for different projects. We finally arrived at different formats, right? We ourselves being IT company, but we found that with every project the formats are changing, right? And if you try to keep the same format, it doesn't serve the purpose. So the serving of the purpose is very, very important, right? And that's how we created separate formats, right, for all the projects, right? And then we have seen that, right? Even what the level of detailing was so much that last year on the same day, how much was the saving, right? And how much is the monthly expected savings versus how much is the targeted saving and how much we are actually getting it, right? So this was the level of detailing. Now what happens is, since you are going through so much of parameters, like for example, what happens if we are ill, right? Doctor asks us to carry out so many pathology tests, right? And those pathology tests comes up with so many parameters. But doctor does the one diagnosis or two diagnosis, right? These are the one or two diseases which you are suffering, right? And then they treat you, right? So similar thing we have seen that whenever you are monitoring in so detail, right? Then any of the energy saving project, if it is not performing, then why it is not performing, you come to know, and you need to do what kind of correction, right? That is what comes out with such kind of a detailed monitoring, right? Now the question comes, how to monitor, right? So friends, we suggest that you may monitor using a log sheet, you may monitor using an energy monitoring system, or you may monitor using a chiller manager, or you can simply do WhatsApp reporting, right? Or you can use any method. It doesn't matter how are you monitoring. What matters is what parameters you are monitoring. What matters is how are you interpreting all these parameters. What matters is what is the frequency at which you are monitoring different parameters. And after monitoring, what is the corrective action you are taking it, right? So these things are more important than how we are monitoring the system, right? Then comes verification, right? So what does it verification means? Verification means you have some number, and with respect to that, you are trying to see at what number you are arriving at, right? So energy saving, right? Why it happens? Because some of the process parameters are improved, some of the technologies, right, are more efficient. But finally, what happens in a chiller project, right? You may use any technology, right? But what all it will affect? It will affect condenser approach, it will affect chiller loading, it will affect evaporator in or out temperature, it will affect condenser in or out water temperature, right? And your occupancy, your banquet, right? All these parameters will affect your energy consumption level. Your cooling tower approach is very, very important, right? And humidity. So like this, there can be number of parameters, right? And even if this list is larger, right? But everybody involved in the project, right, actually goes through this. What we have seen is that in case of automation or in case of automated monitoring, the data goes to everyone, right? But frankly speaking, nobody reads it out, nobody interprets it, right? I'm not saying that those kind of systems are there is necessarily something wrong with it, but at least if you type them out, if you enter them out in a system, right, then at least you are going through that, right? So even if it is a long list like a pathology report, but a detailed finding, right, a detailed parameter monitoring gives us a right diagnosis, and that is what is the purpose of MND, right? So here also, our conviction is very clear that it doesn't matter how are you verifying, right? What matters is what all parameters you are trying to monitor and verify. right? And how are you finally interpreting them? So this is what is more important. So friends, all these things, right, finally must culminate into savings. So these are the energy saving projects which we have implemented. And here, the financing and everything is part of the project, right? And here you see that the net positive cash flow, right, which is generated for the customer right from the first month, that is around 1.9 lakh, right? And that is how energy efficiency project has a potential to actually reduce the energy cost, right, by involving financing into the picture, right? So automatically this 1.89 lakhs add to the profits, right? Same way for another project, which is the evaporative condenser, right? This technology is also good. This also we plan it in such a way that it should give net positive cash flow to the customer. And same is the third example wherein a whole chiller system is modified, right, and replaced by a part of the system, stopping the main large system, right? And here also there is a net positive cash flow. So energy efficiency project, the payback concept has gone back, right? Because in a saving project, there is a feeling that why should we invest, right? We should be actually getting some savings directly, right? So many financing agencies are there which are now financing energy efficiency project, and by doing this way, net positive cash flow can start right from first month. Friends, I would also like to share some minute and some time about our energy efficient motor programs. You must be aware that IE4 and IE5 motors, they have come up, right? And IE4 and IE5 motors are doing a big impact, right? So this is an old motor, right? And this is the belt drive, and here is the new IE4 motor that has been installed, right? And here, these are the savings, right? The savings that were achieved is almost like 23%, right? And which is almost like 1,876 units saving, right? Rupees saved is around 18,000, and the payback period here is 18 months, right? So these technologies, energy efficient technologies, right, are there to create a big difference, right? Same way, if we see through IE5 motors, right? These are yet to become popular, but they are available, and for a very specific application, these motors give phenomenal savings, right? So we were surprised when we implemented this project because the savings were almost like 45%, right? But these are actually measured and verified savings, right? So a proper M&B was first planned, right? And that M&B was accepted to everyone, to OEM, to us, to client, to bank, to everyone. This is fixed. And then you implement the project before and after, you do the measurement, and then you can compute the savings, right? So with a good M&B, right, even if the outcome is unbelievable, right, but there is no other option but to believe it, right? This is the third case. Here also, the savings are almost like 30%, right? So energy efficient technologies have phenomenal potential, right? However, to demonstrate the savings, a very good M&B plan is the need, right? And so we strongly recommend everyone that first fix the M&B plan and then only implement the project, right? So this is the overall project, right, wherein ROI of 85% was achieved with an investment of 2.37 crores. Over 2 crores savings were achieved, and GHG gas emission reduction was more than 2,000 metric ton per year. And there were several projects, several initiatives. But what was important is that how the overall savings will be computed, how the overall performance would be evaluated, right? So there is a clear-cut baseline, and then there is a clear-cut consumption and how to calculate the cost, right? The energy or fuel cost keeps changing, right? So we have to fix them as well, right? So it is the same graph which we discussed earlier. So friends, if we would have taken an average baseline, then you can see that what would have happened with the quantification of the savings. So that's how right fixation of the baseline, right, which is a part of a right M&B plan, is something very, very key to any energy saving project, right? The technologies are immense, let me tell you. They are like medicines available in a medical shop, right? But some of the technologies are applicable to some of the plant or some of the buildings, right? It's not that all the technologies are implemented everywhere. So that is the reason a right pathology, a right finding of the project is very, very important, right? And doesn't matter what not the level of project can be. There's no point in implementing a project without having a proper M&B plan, right? And these are the actual delivered savings, right, through various energy saving projects, right, in different kind of facilities, different kind of manufacturing facilities. And these are the actual savings delivered in case of commercial buildings, right? So what we do is that we first of all fix a acceptable method of monitoring the savings, accepted method of quantifying the savings, right? Which is called as M&B, right? What is the M&B plan for energy efficiency project? This should be the first question. Then, what is the energy saving project? Because energy saving project can be anything, right? But if you're working on chiller, right, it doesn't matter whether you are implementing technology A or technology B, your M&B plan can be exactly same, right? So friends, putting all these things in a very small way, we have developed a cost model, right? This cost model is actually comes from the energy cost, which pinches us a lot, right? So how do we put it? We do first of all the cost analysis. It's not that just the energy consumption, but all the energy forms, right, have to be finally converted into cost. Some locations electricity is cheap, right? So we are converting thermal project into electrical. Some projects, some locations thermal energy is cheaper, so we are converting electrical heating project into thermal project, right? And then we do the opportunity evaluation, because energy saving opportunities, as we discussed again and again, they are plenty, right? So we have to finally evaluate all of them or some of them, but finally we have to choose and we have to optimize that. But doesn't matter how good you have done 1, 2, 3, the fourth one, which is transferring the savings, right? That is very important, right? Because that is the ultimate purpose of doing step 1, step 2, and step 3. And transferring the savings, why we say transferring the savings, that the moment we say transfer the savings, that means that there is a transaction. There is something which is getting delivered, right? So that's how we say that we deliver savings. That means that something is going to physically arrive at. And this cannot be done without a proper M&B plan. It's your M&B plan which helps you to arrive at savings, right? And that is the reason it has to be done on a daily basis. It has to be done on a monthly basis. And it should definitely be done on a yearly basis. The purpose of all these 3 exercises can be completely different. Thank you. Thank you very much. I request Kunal to take up the questions. I hope you are finding sessions useful, right? All these sessions are put on YouTube also. You can refer it. You have any query, you can always connect to me, right? My number is publicly available. My email is also available, right? We are there to answer your queries anytime.
So yeah, so I'll go with the questions.
Yes.
So the first question is, what exactly the difference between option A and option B of the M&B method?
See, when we define these methods, so we have to go through absolutely what IP MVP says, right? The kind of M&B plan which you may decide with customer can be somewhere in between A and B also, right? Or it can be somewhere in between deemed savings and A also, right? But here, what is the difference between option A and option B is, see, energy is a function of power and time, right? So that's how you do kilowatt into hours. So that's how you get energy, right? In option A, what you will do is you will measure one parameter, right? That is your kilowatt, right? Before and after, right? And then time is something which you have assumed, right? Because for example, if you have done a LED project, how will you measure the time? You can't put a timer, right, on all the LED lights. It is practically not feasible, right? But we know that how much is the actual time for which the lighting fixtures may remain on, right? So that there is a acceptance from all the agencies, all the sites, that so much is the energy saving. So option A, what option A will do in this project is it will measure kilowatt to kilowatt difference, right? And measurement can be an acceptance also, because if a lighting fixture is 100 kilowatt, it is going to draw 100 kilowatt. If a LED light is around 10 watt, 10 watt, so it is going to draw 10 watt, right? So 100 watt minus 10 watt, right, is 90 watt is going to be your saving. So this is acceptable even without physically measuring it. So this is option A. In option B, what happens is, right, in case of chiller, right? So in case of chiller, your chiller loading is continuously varying, right? During night, the load is low, so it will be at lesser loading, and your kilowatt will also be low. During the day, it will be high. During summer, it will be high, right? So no single kilowatt reading can become your baseline, right? So what happens is, you say that my monthly chiller consumption will become my month baseline, right? So there are energy meters installed, right? Because of ISO 50,000, energy monitoring has really happened in a nice way in many of the facilities, right? So that properly measured, properly believable numbers are available. So these are the monthly kWh numbers, right? Taken on the energy meters. Now you carry out any project on the chiller, right? The savings must reflect on that, right? So now what you do is that you implement a project, right, wherein for example, you have implemented in July, right, and month on month you are monitoring, right? So let's say the past month is October, right? So we are trying to calculate October month savings. So October month baseline energy consumption, right? I mean, which is before the project on the same energy meter. How much was that much of kWh consumption, right? So that's your baseline. And then how much is the actual energy consumption after your project is implemented? So October 2021 consumption, right, will be after project consumption. So baseline consumption minus after project consumption, both of these are completely measured parameter, right? There is no estimation here, right? So this is option B. Now to simply tell you what is option C. In option C, you are not going by chiller measurement, right? You are going by the utility meter measurement, right? With adding DG power, right? And then you are saying that since there are so many projects being done at the facility, let us measure the overall energy consumption, and that overall energy consumption is your option C. Yeah, Kunal. Next question, please.
Yeah. So, Mr. Vinod, you have raised your hand. So, if you have any questions, please put your question in a Q&A section. Yeah. So we will go to the second question. How to address issues arising after the signing of a agreement with the customer related to M&V?
It's a very, very practical and very, very difficult question. See, what happens is because of Corona, the occupancy level has gone down. The businesses happening at various facilities, they have gone down. So this has really become a problem, right? Or for example, if somebody is trying to implement a project now, right? So past 12 months, the baseline cannot be taken up, right? Because the facility, many of the facilities were not in operation, or they were operation at a very, very reduced load, right? So the methods of these kind of methods will not be in place, right? So let me take the first point first, right? The first thing is that we have to maintain the project properly, right? And we have to monitor different parameters, right? Like for example, chiller loading, right? You are consistently monitoring chiller loading, so it has remained low as compared to the pre-project scenario, right? So that is also one of the way. Second way is the temperatures that are being maintained, right? The third is that there are no complaints, right, on the temperature side, right? The fourth way is that you are comparing the previous year's savings, right? Like for example, assuming that the project was implemented 2 years back, So last year on the corresponding month, whatever was the savings, so that much of savings are going to be there, right? So your logical approach, I have only this answer to it, right? Your logical approach helps you that if in the last corresponding year, if this much was the savings, so and if your occupancy and your banquets are similar, right, then these are the savings, right? And the last approach is to apply the regression, right, to balance the load. So regression analysis actually allows us, even IPMVP also suggests us to apply regression methods, right, to convert the consumption level for a given set of occupancy, because occupancies will never remain same in your baseline and your post-project activity. So these are 4 or 5 different methods, right, to sort out the issues. Yeah, next question, please.
So the next question, yeah. Can we use option D to adopt change in production and change in baseline conditions?
See, option D is primarily meant for a greenfield project, because if I'm trying to do a new project, so and I'm interested to do energy efficiency project in my new facility, right? And I want to install that, right? So I do not have a baseline at all, right? So how do I do that, right? So what happens is I do not apply any energy saving project in that facility, and then I simulate to come up with an estimated level of energy consumption, right? Okay, and then what happens is I keep symbolically applying in the simulation exercise that I do project A, I do project B, I do project C. So simulation tools help me to arrive at what could be the reduced energy consumption level, right? So that is how option D is useful, right? If we are talking about production, then that is the regression is the best method to follow that. Right, means at a baseline level you are applying regression, right, and then at current level you are using that regression equation, right, to see that what should have been the energy consumption for that particular production, and then you are comparing with that, right? So for production, I would recommend a regression based approach. For green facilities, for new buildings, the option D, right? But even for existing building, it is the regression approach that works out better.
Yeah. Thank you, Milind sir. So these are all the questions we have, and if anyone is having any questions, they can directly reach to us. We will answer them. And as said, these all presentations are also available in on the YouTube to see. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.